Uh, I'm back again, probably because I just saw a couple of videos. Because this is what I call the final act, and I used to put this up on a lot of messages on Facebook, and I mentioned it a few times in my videos, which is called an identity function. I just saw the title of a video that said, "We exist within the story." In which how does it go? The brain. As if the story that we experience exists within the brain. Okay? So, if I believe that, then it means that the brain is in control. Okay? I'm sorry, that's not how it works. It's called the light of living spirit. So, as I mentioned in another video, that I'd had an experience in Lapahoihoi Beach Park with a living spirit that represents what I am, was accelerating the speed of higher hyperdimensional realms that my spirit was going back to. Bye. So I slowed my speed down. No, it's time, not time to leave. Which means when you look at my head, there's a brain in there. I'm not the brain. Okay? That's represented by the information that is in the DNA in which that brain was created to be used as what? Remember what I mentioned before? This avatar, the physical body, is a communications platform. So yes, there is a relationship that the brain has, which is made up of all the circuits in which neurons, chemical messengers, are doing what? Signals, frequencies, algorithms, represented by thoughts, feelings, all that. Okay? Which is tied to another video that I watched right before that, which is actually a very good site because these guys do such an outstanding job of pulling together so many sources of information in which to do what? Sort of, hey, I'm aware of more things. Now I can sort of put the puzzle together. And he mentioned something about when he talked about, rah, and what it means to sort of experience the higher frequency energy. But he made an important point about what it means to reconnect with the inner you, the soul, spirit. Okay? And why I have emphasized, because this avatar, which is a DNA assembly put together by the girl on the planet, the goddess. Okay? So this avatar was put together at her mother's lab, a half a dimension out, on the spin rotation of the particle accelerator, which is a half a dimension out, where Eden is. That's where her mother Eve is. And Eve has a lab. So the DNA was put together. And I explained that in a previous video. Okay? So all of that DNA was put together, and then we call it seeded into this realm, in which a soul can jump into it. So remember I mentioned tethers. Come into this vehicle, okay, as an avatar, which means we have the ability to adapt on the fly through the female mitochondria, to adapt to the environment in which we transmit high waves. Okay? So the reason when you realize you're in a classroom in lower creation, which is 3D, then it would be natural to sort of expect, even though I don't put any expectations on anything because I don't try to be the director of the play. Okay, remember, go with the flow. So what happens is you realize, as I did when I was a child, that I jumped into what's called a distorted energy field. Distorted means waves of energy are being canceled out by other waves of energy that are being transmitted, whether it's through technology, like an antenna on top of a mountain that's broadcasting low frequency energy. So now my antenna is picking up low frequency energy, or whether I walk by somebody who is emitting or broadcasting low frequency energy by what it is they're experiencing as either thought form algorithms or experiencing emotions of sadness, of pain, of grief, of anger, frustration, all the lower frequencies that we experience. So this is when we talk about waves that are in harmony with each other. So imagine that no matter where you go in this realm, you're experiencing nothing less in waves of energy running at a high speed, what it is that we are broadcasting, that are in harmony, resonance on the electromagnetic spectrum with each other. And then that means that all of the energy on the planet is in harmony with each other, which allows us to be at peace with ourselves, be at peace of mind, okay? Which means the divine light of the singularity, which is flowing through the goddess in the planet, is flowing through our heart, connected to the pineal gland, if you will, that allows the communication vehicle, this platform, to emit and broadcast through the living spirit and soul that we are, higher frequency energy. So that means that the nature of the universe that we experience comes from the soul. The soul is the compass bearing upon which we know our identity, the identity of the soul. So now we have different soul family identities. And then we also have what I call sort of a misnomer because of lack of knowledge that is held within the light. Which is why when Patty Broussard broke down in 2 of her videos the genetics, not everybody that is here of 7.5 billion batteries, if you will, were all cut from the same genetic cloth. They're not. Remember I mentioned 5 versions of hybrids that I'm aware of that I learned through Patty. Now I experience it simply by, if you want to think of the evidence of that, is when I was a child growing up and I realized that I'm having an interface or meeting people or going through a community in which I'm experiencing lower waves of broadcast from their communication platform, which I realized that this is a lower density consciousness environment, so I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm going back to be in nature with everything that is in nature, that is vibrating at a higher resonant frequency, like living trees, like living flora, living fauna, everything that is living in spirit, that is in nature, the spirit of a wolf, the spirit of a bear, the spirit of an eagle. That's where all the living spirit is, because we live in a spiritual world, a spiritual realm. But I am also aware of the fact that we have androids here. We have artificial intelligence here. We have biomechanical beings here. Cyborgs here. So we have sort of a cornucopia of different beings that represent different frequencies that are emitted, which means they experience who they are differently than the way that we do with a spirit and a soul. So we have soul families. So what's happening is when we're interfacing and communicating with each other, with all the people that you see in all the live chats that are making comments with hearts and hands together like palms, we're all happy that we're all becoming awakening, because what it essentially is remembering who we are. Because what's lifting, when they call lifting the veil, is that all of the lower frequency communication systems that were on this planet set up by demons are being dissolved and taken down. That means that more people are going to be able to experience more of the energy that represents their identity, because the level of the harmonics, okay, of breaking through the veil, which was like a vice, which was a 55 harmonic that essentially frees our mind, which frees our spirit, which opens up our soul to experience more of what we are in energy that we are attracting, that we remember who we are and the way in which we do. That's what's happening, is that people are beginning to realize things about themselves that they didn't realize before, which is called self-actualization. One of the elements that Maslow talked about, the hierarchy of needs, even though an autonomous being does not live according to a pyramidal hierarchy of one being over another, over another, over another, which creates with a money system, if I jump over you, then I get to have more money, which means more stuff, which means heavier matter density consciousness. So that's why an inversion of that going the other way means we are using all of the energy that is available to us from the source of divine light from which it comes to be free, which means we're giving all of our energy away for free, like the sun up there with the female Merkaba. When we are giving away our energy for free, we are naturally attracting more of what we are, which is free energy. That means that the universe is like a fountain of youth. And that's what allows us, as this one gentleman realizes, that when you are finally free to be who you are and you're attracting more energy as you go with a powerful magnet, then you are free. And you're experiencing more of what you are, which is free energy, so you realize that you already have everything that you need in energy, because that's all there is. The first law of thermodynamics, you cannot create or destroy energy. That's what we are. So I've tried to mention on a couple of occasions about the input and the output side. Energy in, energy out. The energy we are that we're experiencing. The higher frequency energy that we keep attracting, then the higher the frequency energy that our state of awareness is experiencing. So when we are experiencing the higher frequency density consciousness of our energy, we begin to realize how good that energy feels. And when we're in a state which is timeless, we realize that the natural energy that we are attracting that allows us to feel and know that we have all the energy that we need, you have reached 0 point. You are now the divine light. That allows for the purity of your energy and the purity of your spirit to be experienced. That's heaven. That's what it means to experience the heavenly realm within us. We are what heaven is. So it isn't about the external side of who we are, because that's the projection side of who we are in a bi-directional mirror, which is the emphasis upon which what I do to you, I do to me. If I lower your energy, then I'm going to experience in me the energy that I just used to communicate with you, that you will thus experience, and then you will either react or not react to that, but how you respond to that will be known by me, because my antenna will pick up the signal of your response. That's two antennas communicating and having an interface with each other in a bidirectional echo chamber of sound and light, frequency, broadcast, communication between us and the rest of the cosmos. So it's all about the inner us. See? Which is why I always had a problem when I think about how a guy was willing to, if you will, sacrifice the physical body in order for the spirit to go on and be what is an eternal life in living spirit, what is divine light that is in him, that is in us. So in other words, I am a reflection of what that is within me, so I don't need to be what that is to be what I am already. So I don't need to give my energy away to something that is external to me in order for me to be what I am already, which is eternal, which is what living spirit is, and what light is, which is what love is. That's how they use the different religions on this planet in order to give away energy instead of being the energy that we are that is broadcasting it naturally. There's a difference in how that works. If I'm giving that energy away to what's known as an icon, then the icon upon which that icon is now has all that energy that I just gave to it that it can use however it wants. Okay? And that's how sorcerers and black witches and wizards use that energy. There's a difference between naturally broadcasting the energy that you're experiencing who you are, pushing that out in an antenna in a scalar way everywhere, 360 degrees is like a magnetic shield, and then saying to yourself, to a very specific entity, that I'm going to give you all my energy. There's a big difference because there is a consciousness intent. That's a big difference between just experiencing who you are in a state of nirvana or a state of peace, because we can measure on the electromagnetic spectrum on the speed of the wave when we're in a state of peace. Okay? So that's why we can measure and then correlate using the English language the speed of the waveform that we're experiencing on the pulsed electromagnetic frequency spectrum if you're in a state of love and joy between 500 and 600. What it means when your pH at the cellular level, in which the spirit, what is in the body, is experiencing the cells that are lit on fire that are running 800 million hertz per second. Boy, you can feel the tingling in your toes. You can feel the energy throughout every centimeter of your physical body. So the spirit is experiencing the purity of the energy in the physical body. So the spirit, the soul, and the state of consciousness is higher because the awareness of what we're aware of is running a higher frequency. That's the power of the mind, light, spirit, body. So I try and remember that I'm an autonomous unit that runs high-speed frequency electromagnetic energy in a physical body that I use to communicate through my experiences what I've learned, that I thus share with everybody else, that if it has value to others that are hearing and watching what I have to share, then that's the reason why I put this stuff up, is to share my experiences and how those experiences have related to how we can move and shift to a higher frequency state of consciousness in which it's not held captive by lower frequency density consciousness that wants to hold us captive to feed on our light because of its inability to generate any love. So I thought I would mention that because as this ascension process is taking place, where people's energy are going up because of what they are aware of, it's sort of like, I suppose the best analogy that I can use that is pretty simple, and I may have mentioned this in a previous video, had to do like when my father mentioned to me that the meaning of what the golden rule is, which is what I do to you, I do to me, which simply means that I will experience the use of my energy by what I experience from the impact of what that energy did. So now we're back to how big is your footprint. You know, for example, the U.S. Forest Service will put up signs now that they didn't used to have before when you go into like very deep wilderness areas, right? where you're not allowed to bring any kind of combustion machinery in there. They want to leave it as pristine as possible. So the question the Forest Service is asking people when they go in the wilderness area, is it possible for your state of consciousness to go in there and leave without knowing if somebody else went in there, you were ever there? Which means leaving it undisturbed. Can you do that? Which is like observing, which means you're not attached to anything. You're autonomous. Your state of consciousness is autonomous, and you can appreciate and have the love and the honor and the respect for everything that is there that is living, which means that your presence there is not going to have a negative impact on everything that is living that is there. We can measure that, obviously, okay? So what I'm referring to here is that something that I noticed as a child, because I was looking at all of my father's scientific manuals and all of the trade journals that they use to share information between each other on how technology and information is being shared between beings and how that escalates as the speed to which that information is evolving, in which we experience in the future the use of their technology and how is that technology being used. What that is a measurement of the consciousness of the mind of the being that is using its state of consciousness and how it is using what it learns, okay, in relation to everything else that we become aware of by the use of what it is that it introduces into this reality that we thus experience. So the simple way of sort of imparting what that means is when I say, for example, we use our energy when we are divinely lit with divine light. We use our energy and our knowledge and the information that we acquire through discovery for the benefit of everybody in the cosmos. Okay? Which means if I benefit by it, you will benefit by it, because I will know the result of introducing something that I thus learn and discover. I will know the impact of that on everything else that is living in spirit, whether it's positive or it's negative, by knowing the result. How do we know the result? When you're in no time. So you can be in no time and know the result when you're inside of a time clock, and then know the result in the future, which is why we wouldn't do it. Because we already know that it would have a negative result, so we're not going to introduce the knowledge into the realm upon which others become aware of that, because if they're a lower state of density consciousness, they might use that technology or that knowledge in a way that doesn't benefit them or anyone else. Because that effect or that behavioral future-proof past knowledge that is thus introduced and adopted by others, we can measure the impact either by the poisoning of the air, the poisoning of the water, the poisoning of the soil. Okay? So in other words, just because we become aware of something and we are gaining something in knowledge, the ultimate impact of what we learn through knowledge of others that we weren't aware of before is the application of that knowledge into our own lives that we share with others. That's a measurement, isn't it? That's a measurement of coursework and evolution. That's also a measurement of the soul. That's also a measurement on whether they even have a soul. That's also a measurement of what kind of being that is. Because everything that we measure in energy as to its impact on the input and the output side of the experience in a bidirectional echo chamber. That's how it works. Experience. We're experiencing the energy from the consciousness. State of awareness of that being is an output based on the inner you that we are, that we thus choose to use that energy in a particular way in which we're using it from one now-time moment to the next, which represents a waveform timeline. So everything that they did here was to collapse the timeline of humanity, terminate it. So that meant that the state of awareness had to come up in order for us to look in the mirror and then realize the energy that we're giving consent to, it is self-termination. Why would we do that to ourselves? Because we're not aware of how the communication technology works that was holding our consciousness captive. to be in vibrational alignment with a demon. That's the sum of it. Anyway, I wanted to put a cap on that for the day. If anything comes up I become aware of that has any benefit or value to anybody, hey, I'll put it up. But what I'm realizing more than anything else right now is people are finally coming together. The numbers are going to rise. But I'm also very cognizant of the fact that we have a lot of different beings here that by the very nature of who they are, where they come from, and what they represent, because I'm aware of the fact we got androids here. I realized that when I was in high school. We used to refer to them as a Xerox machine. They're simply put the information in, they'll kick the information out, which simply means is that their experiences were presented to them. They wrote it into their unconscious memory, believed that the experience was what the experience is without knowing the difference between how that experience is going to affect their future. They have no idea. And the reason they don't have any idea is because their state of awareness is running in a longer wave. It's not running at a high speed to which they can see the result. That's the benefit of having higher pH, is that your state of awareness goes up. You know, everything is energy. Anyway, have a beautiful day. Sun is up. Thank you very much for your energy, girl. Bye.